Sam Witwer has teased that Maul Shadow Lord will finally give us the Maul stories we've been dying to see, and while I've already done a video discussing the potential of a Maul vs Vader duel in the series, there's one pivotal event in Maul's life we were supposed to see on screen, but never did, and that's the cancelled Clone Wars Season 6 arc Son of Dathomir. But what if I told you this might not be the case for much longer? With Maul set to lead his own series, we can expect Shadow Lord to dive deeper into the character than ever before, and including key moments from Son of Dathomir are integral to understanding where Maul's at this point in the timeline, his actions, motivations, and how we view him as a character overall. This is exactly what the creatives behind the series have set out to do. So why is Son of Dathomir so important to this new story, and how do I think it will change our view of Maul going forward? Let's get into it. Son of Dathomir was a 4-part arc planned for the Clone Wars Season 6 prior to the series cancellation in 2013, picking up from Maul's defeat and capture by Darth Sidious in the Clone Wars Season 5 episode The Lawless, but before the events of the Clone Wars Season 7. At the end of the episode, Sidious tells Maul,
"Do not worry. I'm not going to kill you. I have other uses for you."
But we never get to see what other uses Sidious was referring to. There's a huge gap in Maul's story from this point to when we see him again on Mandalore in the Clone Wars Season 7. So what happened? This is where Son of Dathomir comes into play. Before we continue, please like the video and consider subscribing to my channel so you never miss out on any of my new Star Wars content. Star Wars animation is my favorite part of Star Wars storytelling, and I really appreciate all of your support. Son of Dathomir details Maul's escape from imprisonment and sees him waging war against the CIS, ending with a climactic duel between himself and Mother Talzin versus Darth Sidious, Count Dooku, and General Grievous. Through this arc, we learn that Sidious was using Maul to lure Mother Talzin out of hiding to eliminate her once and for all, a goal he eventually achieves, but a story not every fan is aware of. Son of Dathomir was eventually released as a 4-part comic series based on the original Clone Wars scripts written by Matt Michnovetz in conjunction with George Lucas, making the events of the comics canon. Matt Michnovetz was also announced as the head writer for the Maul Shadow Lord series, so there's already a behind-the-scenes connection. Now let's discuss how Son of Dathomir is important to Maul Shadow Lord. From what little we know about the plot so far, Maul will be taking on a young Twi'lek apprentice who he believes will help him in his quest for vengeance. This then begs the question, what or who is Maul trying to avenge? The two people that immediately come to my mind are Savage Opress and, more importantly, Mother Talzin. Maul even speaks to this in Star Wars Rebels Season 2, saying,
"The Sith took everything from me, ripped me from my mother's arms, murdered my brother, used me as a weapon, and then cast me aside."
Savage was murdered by Sidious in the Clone Wars Season 5, and Mother Talzin was murdered by Sidious with the help of Count Dooku and General Grievous in Son of Dathomir Issue 4. Savage and Mother Talzin were most likely the only two people in the galaxy Maul cared for, his own flesh and blood. And for those unaware, Mother Talzin is actually Maul's biological mother, but he was stolen away from her as a child by Sidious. So wanting to avenge their deaths makes sense for the character, and seeing these pivotal moments in Shadow Lord would not only further enhance Maul's character journey thus far, but provide the audience a look into his current headspace, motivations, and past traumas, furthering our connection to him as the main character of this new series. While I don't expect to see the entire Son of Dathomir arc in Shadow Lord, the one integral piece I would include is the final duel, ending with Mother Talzin's sacrifice. During the duel against Sidious, Dooku, and Grievous, Mother Talzin sacrifices herself to save Maul in an act of true love and compassion for her son, something Maul never experienced up until this point in his life. So while Maul and Mother Talzin's relationship has only really been explored in Son of Dathomir and the Star Wars Myths and Fables short story An Unwilling Apprentice, her sacrifice and death surely would have had an impact on Maul and contributed to his shift in focus between the Clone Wars Seasons 5 and 7. But without Son of Dathomir, this character shift makes no sense. Before Son of Dathomir, Maul was only focused on two things: getting revenge on Obi-Wan Kenobi and amassing power for himself. But after the death of Savage Opress and Mother Talzin, Maul's focus shifts to destroying the one person who took everything from him, Darth Sidious. Maul's life is a revolving cycle of trauma, rage, and revenge, a direct result of his upbringing as a pawn of the Sith, and this is what makes his story so tragic. This is not to say that Maul is actually a good guy or a hero, because we've seen him do some pretty terrible things, but when pitted against Sidious, Dooku, and Grievous, Maul is the one we're rooting for. He's a victim of the environment he was brought up in. Shadow Lord is flipping the script script, shifting Maul from the antagonist to protagonist, and any good protagonist should be relatable or at least gain the sympathy of the audience. Following Maul's journey from his introduction in The Phantom Menace to the events of Order 66, Maul walks this fine line between villain and what I'm referring to as a tragic anti-hero. The tragic hero in literature is usually characterized as a noble figure that meets a tragic end as a result of character flaw or mistake, with Maul's fatal flaw being his obsession with revenge. Though you could argue this isn't directly his fault and instead a result of his Sith indoctrination dooming him from the start. Prior to his duel with Ahsoka during the Siege of Mandalore, Maul is so close to doing the right thing, and this is why Ahsoka initially agrees to help him. But what Maul lacks are the noble intentions behind his actions. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and both characters realize this, but while Ahsoka is fighting for the people of the Republic, Maul is fighting for vengeance against the wrongs done to him by Sidious. So while the tragedy of Son of Dathomir is a pivotal part of Maul's journey in Star Wars, do we really need to see it on screen when the comics are readily available to read? Star Wars comics get talked about even less than Star Wars animation, so even if someone has heard about the events of Son of Dathomir, it's unlikely they've actually read the comics and are therefore missing this crucial moment in Maul's life, losing his mother, which fundamentally changes him and his motivations as a character forever. So do I think this part of Maul's story is important enough to be included in Shadow Lord? Yes, and here's why. When revisiting Asajj Ventress' story for the Tales of the Underworld series, Lucasfilm surprised fans by including a pivotal moment from her cancelled Clone Wars arc, Dark Disciple, as a prologue before catching up with Ventress in the present day, showing how the events of Dark Disciple fundamentally changed Ventress as a person, influencing her character and motivations throughout her Tales episodes. Tales could have simply told us how Ventress survived through expository dialogue, but instead made the choice to show instead of tell, further connecting us to Ventress, and I believe Maul Shadow Lord has the potential to do the same for Maul by showcasing how Son of Dathomir influenced who Maul had become by the time of the Clone Wars Season 7 and into the events of Shadow Lord, fundamentally changing Maul for the foreseeable future. It's also worth mentioning that Lucasfilm had Mother Talzin's voice actress come back for Tales, making her return in other new Star Wars media a lot more likely. I'm really interested to see how the loss of his family and failure to stop the Emperor's ascension will affect his future goals and relationships, specifically with the introduction of his Twi'lek apprentice in Shadow Lord. During the Clone Wars, Maul was only ever loyal to his own flesh and blood, so it'll be interesting to see how the events of Son of Dathomir and Talzin's sacrifice go on to shape his future, and why I believe the inclusion of Son of Dathomir is integral for the story Maul Shadow Lord is going to tell. But have you read Son of Dathomir, and do you think we'll see any glimpses of it in Maul Shadow Lord? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to follow me on social media at ScottyHolidaySW, and as always, may the Force be with you.